Oh, during our Lenten services, we got in the habit of doing something in the middle of the week, and I think it's important that we continue to keep in touch. So, welcome to our visitors from far away and from nearby, and welcome to all of our members here at the St. John Norrona Parish. And this is just a midweek message. We're in the season of Easter, and we are celebrating the resurrection. Now, resurrection is a complex word and a complex concept, and much too deep and complex to totally unpack in a little 5-minute or 15-minute or 10-minute or 10-hour or 50-hour talk. So we're just going to briefly touch on a couple of things. Whole books and series of books have been written about resurrection and what it means. But I think it's important, above all else, to remember that resurrection is different from resuscitation. Resurrection means the transformation of change that comes from life arising out of death. And we tend to think of the resurrection as being the most important event in history. As Christians, that's what we confess. But we also know that God works by means of resurrection all the time. The resurrection of Jesus Christ is a unique event in history, but life always comes out of death, and all life ends. We all know that seeds produce new growth, and that new growth matures and becomes fully bloomed and then bursts into from blossom, crosses over into seed, and it produces the next generation. And that seed is laid in the ground as a dead thing and buried and rises up to new life. It's how creation functions. God has coded resurrection into the very fabric of our reality. Our star and our bodies and everything that we hold and touch in this world comes out of the first generations of stars that burst as supernovas way back at the beginning of the galaxy, according to the beginning of the universe, according to what we call the big story. God is engaged in this process of creation from the beginning of our universe. And we get to participate in it, and it is glorious. So as we celebrate this season of resurrection, and as we look at this return of life as Christ comes back to the disciples and walks into a locked room and does something very new and transforms life and transforms our reality. It's part of the way God's worked, always, in society, in nature, in creation. Resurrection is God's way of bringing new life. So in this season, we're in this weird position of looking at a tomb. Our society seems to be collapsing in a way. Our reality, our life as we know it, has changed so fundamentally. But we have the promise of resurrection. We don't know what it's going to look like when we get to the other side of the COVID-19 pandemic. But we have the promise of Christ that resurrection is our reality, that death is not the final answer, and that new things come out of the death of the old things. Maybe there are important changes that this is going to bring about. Perhaps in slowing down and not being so wrapped up in the hustle and bustle and hurly-burly of life, we've had time to think about what's important. Perhaps we've taken the time to reassess our priorities. And when the economy comes back, we'll realize that it's part of our life. It's not our whole reality. The relationships among us and between us are far more important than our relationship to our money. And when our money becomes more important than the relationships that we can nurture and foster with it, then we have distorted what it's all about. So when we ease the restrictions on society and we start moving out into life in the new normal, whatever it is going to be, I hope that we can all hold on to the lessons we've learned as we've slowed down. I hope that we can keep in mind how important it is to keep in touch by phone and eventually in person, face to face, and that we will continue to love one another and care for one another in whatever way is most helpful, and that we will continue to be resurrected into this new normal, whatever it's going to be. May God bless you all, and may God keep this time and these lessons fresh in our minds when we start moving back into a society of motion and contact. I hope this is a resurrection, not just a resuscitation of what was before. Thank you.